Welcome back to that nice short break of checking emails or grabbing a snack. I'm going to pass it on to Professor Dina Georges to introduce us to the next session of the day.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here, and it's my pleasure to be introducing the Affect panel. Yes, I'm Dina Georges. I'm the graduate coordinator of WGSI. So we have two panelists today, Stacey Murchison. Stacey Murchison, who goes by she, her, is a DJ, dance artist, and scholar. She is currently a PhD student in dance studies at York University. She is particularly interested in performance and how it is expressed through improvisation, contemporary partnering, and consent culture. Our second panelist is Maisea Bailey. Maisea Bailey is a recent graduate of Dartmouth's Master of Arts in Liberal Studies program, where she received a Byam Shaw Brownstone Thesis Excellence Award in Cultural Study for her master's thesis titled The Visual Activation and the American Liberal Left's Fantasy Post-2016. Maisea's research focuses upon the intersection of social movements and activist art while investigating the cultural frameworks that inform and regulate the implementation of social change. So we're going to begin with Stacey, and the title of her paper is The Affect of Nina Kraviz.
Hi, is it possible to make me a host so I can share a little PowerPoint, please?
Indeed, I think Sam can do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm so grateful to be here and excited and also nervous. Before I get started, I'll mention that I'm coming to you from St. Albert, Alberta. It's a small municipality just north of Edmonton. I'm currently on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of the Métis people. Okay, without further ado. This paper explores the culmination of affects during Nina Kraviz's performance at the Masonic Temple of Toronto on January 25th, 2020. Nina Kraviz is a Russian DJ, music producer, and singer. She is one of the most famous DJs in the world and one of the most accomplished and celebrated female DJs in techno music. She released her debut album, Ghetto Kraviz, in 2012 and has been touring and playing some of the biggest electronic music festivals in the world. Kraviz has captivated a global audience while maintaining artistic control over every aspect of her career. As a professional DJ myself, I had been waiting for 10 years to see and hear her perform. Music is the source of entertainment, but techno is not a mainstream genre. Simply put, one cannot be convinced to attend a techno concert. People are either into techno or they're not, much like affect here. As a new resident of the city of Toronto in the fall of 2019, I bought myself a ticket. I was comfortable with the fact that I would be attending alone. I planned to dance and experience a shared atmosphere with other Kraviz fans, to finally get an in-person look at the person I have been referring to for years as the goddess of techno. It was a wet winter night. It was pouring rain and the air was dank with the smell of marijuana and cigarette smoke. I was reminded of my time living on the west coast of Canada, where my borderline obsession with Kraviz began. Although I went alone, the few hundred people in Toronto who attended the concert reminded me that we are not self-contained in terms of our energies. The line between ourselves and our environment is oscillating and fluid in nature, as is the climate that surrounds our bodies, whether we are standing alone or together. I casually met the people in front of me who were speaking Russian. I presumed that not only were they there to hear the music, but also because they shared a common national identity with Kraviz. I theorized this as being comparable to Maisea Bocciurciu's viewpoint in affect theory becoming nation. Maisea combines Canadian identity and affect theory to examine how people become part of the nation. She discusses the relationship between television and our bodies and how we use our experience as a way to foster a sense of belonging and collective identity. Our relationship to monumental events and how we identify with those experiences in light of our community and country can be amplified to the connections that people make with their national celebrities. Everyone at the show shared a common interest in not only Kraviz, but the underground scene of techno and rave culture. Quote, affect then speaks to an ethical idea of collective belonging, the interconnectedness of body, culture, and emotion, the ways in which this assemblage moves across and transforms surfaces of the skin and identity. This impulse towards embodied theory also parallels affect theory's engagement in connection between bodies and in an idea of a self and perhaps even nation in process. When I finally got into the venue, I was immediately struck by the beauty and the atmosphere of the historic Masonic temple. The affect of exclusivity among the Freemasons is not entirely unlike what happens in the underground rave scene. The first time anyone goes to a rave, they may experience, for the first time, the pure embodiment of dancing till the sun comes up, motivated by the energy around them and driving music. It is like an initiation process that is only known by the people who have experienced it. This is comparable to the Masons, who are known to practice secret handshakes and rituals to which an outsider would never be privy. The exclusivity at this particular rave was in effect doubled down. Not only were we at a rave, exclusive in its own right, we were in the living history of the architecture of a secret society. Like affect theory, there is not just one reason why this is so, and the less that is said about it to the audience, the stronger the allure. The allure of Nina Kraviz also cannot be overstated. Constructing a fixed and definitive image of her is as elusive as attempting to define affect theory in and of itself, because she is continually reinventing herself. In addition to her musical ability and honed technical approach to performance, Kraviz is strikingly beautiful and still works as a professional model for high-end designers. Despite her natural charisma, she often chooses to dress extremely casually. Still, she appears acutely aware of the power of aesthetics. Aesthetics as things that are perceptible through the senses versus things that can only be taught. In 1895, Sir William Hamilton described this type of aesthetics as the philosophy of taste, the theory of fine arts, and the science of the beautiful. Kraviz is also aware of the power of her facial expressions and for their potential to be, quote, at once individual and private and social and shared nonverbal communications. Sylvan Tompkins theorizes that if archaeology is taking matter from beneath the surface to learn about the past, inverse archaeology is taking matter from the surface to learn about the past. Inverse archaeology is looking at the surface, that is, learning what we can about a person from their facial expressions. Our ability to take this information, reorganize, co-assemble, and develop strategies to deal with it in the moment and the future is what Tompkins is referring to as scripts. They are, quote, they are compressed constructions, which basically are mini theories that each of us has to generate in order to deal with the regularities and the changes in the world as we live in it. Our faces are capable of conversing with each other based on a shared knowledge of what different facial expressions look like and mean. Through both learned and innate knowledge, people are capable of decoding the look on people's faces and interpreting them. Tompkins confirms this theory by saying that facial affect is at once biologic and innate and learned and transformed. Consciously or not, Nina Kraviz employs facial expressions to great effect. Her enigmatic eye contact, subtle head positioning, and sensual body movement provide her audience much to interpret and decode. In her analysis of a Marina Abramovic's performance art piece, The Artist is Present, Jennifer Fisher brings the reader's attention to the practice of going for darshan, which is the witnessing of a deity, especially in the image of a sacred object or a person who's revered. Quote, within the spiritual tradition of India, it is customary to go for darshan, a ritual of seeing the divine in persons, animals, rivers, rocks, or places where mythic events have occurred. Darshan can be employed to further understand the dialogic exchange that occurred between Nina Kraviz and her audience that evening, in which the beholder sees and at the same time is seen. Kraviz has not escaped accusations of arrogance and narcissism, but I agree that her audience arrived at her show seeking some sort of sacred knowledge and insight from her. Whether they deliberately projected this desire or not, it positioned Kraviz as the person with power. Many DJs refer to themselves as curators. The word curator is derived from curate or priest, who cares for the souls of a parish. In the same way that the priest looks after the parish, Kraviz has the responsibility of caring for the audience. If we accept that you cannot read affects, you can only experience them, then Nina Kraviz, through her selection of music, is in the unique position of reading and organizing the transmission of entrainment. Entrainment is a process where one person or one group's nervous and hormonal systems are brought into alignment with another. A shaman or medium is responsible for bridging the spiritual world with the material world. In the same way, a DJ has a responsibility to connect the people on the dance floor with each other. Affect plays an important role in determining the relationship between our bodies, our environment, and others. The subjective experience that we feel or think as affect dissolves into experience. Nina Kraviz has become world famous as an accomplished facilitator of these experiences. DJs are constantly weaving two approaches together. They are driven by their passion for music, but as curators, their main job is to make judgments and decisions about what music to play and how to mix it, based on what affect they are experiencing from the audience. This interchangeable energy is what is meant by a DJ reading the crowd. These intuitive decisions are judgments processed when, quote, the moment transmission takes place. DJs are constantly interchanging their energy with that of the crowd, and many DJs say that this back and forth communication between themselves and the audience is what they love about their work. Richard Dyer, in his article, Entrainment and Utopia, speaks about affective code and modes of cultural production as consisting of both representational and non-representational signs. He attributes representational signs to characters, situations, and things, and non-representational signs to color, texture, movement, rhythm, melody, and camera work. While the audience was more aware of the representational sides of Kraviz, her beauty, her music and style, perhaps they were unknowingly equally affected by the non-representational signs. For example, the glaring house lights occasionally appeared in time with climactic phrases in the music mix. For a moment, it revealed everyone in the room as gritty, black, white, and gray. It was shocking to see people cast briefly outside of the glamour of red, yellow, and blue, and I wondered if the crowd experienced the same affect as I did. Like music, affect is not realized in language. An affect is a non-conscious experience of intensity. It is a moment of unformed and unstructured potential. That's a quote by Schaus. This potential could be interpreted as an exchange of embodied sensuality. It demonstrated how Kraviz craftily mingled the affects together to influence the audience's relationship to her, to themselves, and to their environment. As a result, she created a feeling of hyper-belonging, where the crowd was simultaneously connected to her and disassociated from the world outside the concert venue. And I have a short clip. I've gone over a little bit, but I'm going to play this clip. Most of these photos I snapped the evening that I was at this concert, and same with this short clip. I'll play it for you so you can get a feel for it. There you go. Okay, thank you.
Stacey, thank you very much for that. So our next paper by Maisea is entitled A Nostalgic Vision of the Future, Undoing Temporalities and the Visual Reconstruction of the American Liberal Fantasy.
Thank you. I'm also going to share my screen. I end my presentation, and thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Maisea. I appreciate that. Okay, so questions from participants. Maisea, maybe you can get us to think about, you know, just where the liberal left is right now, perhaps affectively, in terms of, you know, fantasies that are lost and just the work of recreating a world.
Yeah, thanks. I think that this is a hopeful time pre-election for the American left. With everything that's going on in the world, obviously we're living in even a further state of situation tragedy. But I do see that there has been potential for the community and the fantasy to rebuild within that tragedy in response to not just Trump's election, but the ongoing history of tragedy in the US and what our history is built upon with whether it be slavery or the current moment of racism in the country. But there is hope, I think, in people being willing to Trump's presidency.
Thank you. Any other questions for our two speakers today? We have a question from Darlene. Do you feel affect is a useful political tool for propaganda? That's for you, Maisea.
I do think that it is a useful tool in visual artworks because of the fact that it makes you feel something and it can speak to you on more of a universal level. And I would argue that it goes further than just simply propaganda, but it by speaking to universal truth, whether that be like a personal experience somebody wants you to understand better in order to have you experience affectively.
I'm wondering if, you know, those fantasies, those political fantasies are fueled by affect and what happens to our affective life when they're dramatically interrupted by political events. I mean, I think that that's what your paper is trying to get at, and think about what role our artists have in helping us reimagine our world in ways that are not necessarily give us certainty, but give us something else. Would you agree?
Yes, and I think that that's what Paula Mendoza does with her work. She offers that cushion of hope within a sense of certainty, but not promising any certainty, which creates the open possibility. you know, it actually leads to further imagination and further dreaming about what is the potential by keeping it open rather than closed.
Thank you so much. Well, I do believe we have run out of time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I think we will begin the next session in 5 minutes. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you soon.